Homeless kid returned. Biker's helmet. Found on the bus stop, by dawn, 400 Harleys bought him new home. At 4:58 a.m., 13-year-old Eli Carter sat at a bus stop with a motorcycle helmet in his lap, holding it like it could explode. He didn't own a phone, a bed, or a single safe place to be when the sun came up. Then the rumble hit the street. One Harley became five. Five became a wall of chrome. The lead rider killed his engine inches from Eli's shoes and jumped off, shouting, "That's my helmet! Where did you get it?" Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. The helmet was heavy and cold, black with painted flames and a deep gouge across the visor, like someone had tried to carve a memory into plastic. On the back was a faded patch that made Eli's stomach twist every time he read it. Iron Haven MC. Eli stood up so fast the helmet nearly slipped from his hands. Rain drummed on the shelter roof above him. The streetlights turned every puddle into a dirty mirror. Behind the first rider, more bikes rolled in and stopped, engines clicking as they cooled. Leather vests, patches, faces that looked like they'd been through weather and worse. "Listen," Eli said, and his voice cracked on the first word. "I found it. It was on the bench. I'm bringing it back. I didn't take it." The biker stepped closer, boots splashing in a shallow puddle. Big man, gray beard, heavy shoulders. His own helmet was off, and his eyes were sharp enough to cut. "That helmet doesn't just get found, kid." Eli's fingers tightened around the chin bar until his knuckles went white. He'd been accused of things before. Always the same look, always the same assumption. "My mom used to say," Eli forced out, "if you find something that belongs to somebody, you return it. Because one day you'll lose something and you'll pray someone's decent." For a beat, the street went quiet except for rain ticking on chrome. The biker yanked a phone from his vest, swiped, and held up a photo beside Eli's helmet. Same flames, same gouge, same shape. "That's mine," the biker said, and it wasn't just ownership. It was personal, like the helmet was a piece of him. Eli swallowed hard. "Then take it, please. I just didn't want it to get stolen." "What's your name?" the biker cut in. "Eli." The man glanced over his shoulder at the others. A younger guy with a shaved head nodded subtly, like he'd already checked the corners. A woman with a braid tucked into her collar scanned the street like she expected trouble to crawl out of the shadows. The biker looked back. "I'm Mason. People call me Iron." "You found it where?" Mason asked. Eli pointed toward the far end of the stop. "Right there. It was just sitting." Mason's gaze sharpened. "Nobody forgets a custom lid, not in this weather." Eli didn't know what to say, so he told the truth, because truth was the only thing he still owned. "I didn't want to touch it at first. I thought it was a trap, like someone would say I stole it." His mouth twisted. "People say that anyway." One of the riders behind Mason muttered, "Kid's smart." Mason didn't take his eyes off Eli. "You been sleeping out here?" Eli's chest tightened. He could lie. He'd lied to cops before, lied to shelter staff, lied to men who asked questions with smiles that didn't reach their eyes. But this man wasn't smiling. He was watching like he could read every decision Eli made. Eli shook his head too quick. Mason's expression didn't change. "That's not an answer." Eli stared at the helmet. "Not here," he whispered. "Sometimes in the old laundromat. Sometimes behind the church if it's not locked." He lifted his eyes. "I'm not hurting anybody. I don't have—" A rough laugh burst from the far sidewalk. Two men lingered under the awning of a closed deli, passing a bottle in a paper bag. One of them pointed at the line of bikes like it was a parade staged for him. "Look at this," the man called. "Bikers picking up their new mascot?" Eli flinched without meaning to. Mason saw it. He turned his head slightly, just enough to clock the men without giving them the satisfaction of full attention. The braid woman stepped off her bike and started walking that way, calm as a slow tide. The men stopped laughing. Mason's voice dropped, rougher now. "You touch anything on that helmet? Pockets? Liner?" Eli blinked. "No, I didn't even open it." Mason exhaled, and for the first time, his anger looked like fear wearing the wrong mask. He reached out carefully, and Eli let him take the helmet. Mason turned it over, fingers tracing the gouge, then the edge of the liner where something small was stitched inside. a tiny strip of red fabric, a ribbon. Mason's hand froze. "What is it?" Eli asked before he could stop himself. Mason didn't answer right away. He stared at the ribbon like it had grabbed him by the throat. Behind him, the riders had gone still. No jokes, no muttering, just engines ticking as they cooled. Finally, Mason looked at Eli again. The suspicion was gone, replaced by something heavier. "Kid," he said quietly, "you did the right thing bringing this back." Eli let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Mason slid the helmet under his arm and nodded toward his bike. "Come on." Eli's stomach dropped. I'm not going anywhere. I just wanted to return it." "I'm not arresting you," Mason said, almost irritated that Eli even thought it. "I'm buying you breakfast." He glanced at Eli's hands. "And we're getting you somewhere warm before you freeze your fingers off." Eli hesitated. Trust was expensive. He didn't have the money. Mason swung a leg over his Harley and looked back, eyes hard but not cruel. "You can sit in the booth at Rosie's with me, or you can stand here while the sun comes up and pretend you're fine." He tapped the helmet once. "But you didn't have to be decent today. You chose to be." "That earns you 10 minutes of my time." The other riders started their bikes again, a low protective circle forming without anyone saying it out loud. Eli stared at the seat behind Mason, a seat that didn't belong to him, a seat that came with risk. But for the first time in a long time, someone had offered him something simple, warmth without a price tag. He stepped forward, hands shaking, and grabbed the back of Mason's vest. Mason nodded once. "Hold on." The Harley rolled away from the bus stop, and Eli felt the city blur as the wind hit his face. For a moment, he almost believed this was what safety sounded like. Rosie's Diner was 2 blocks off the main road, neon open, buzzing against the rain. When Mason parked, the bikes followed in tight, practiced angles. Inside, warmth hit Eli's face hard. Bacon, coffee. The waitress saw the patches inside. "Iron Haven, I was having a peaceful morning." Mason guided Eli to a corner booth. He sat on the outside, Eli on the inside, while the other riders took seats nearby without crowding him. A man with tattoos up his neck took the window table. The braid woman took the one by the door. Nobody said it, but Eli felt it. They were watching so nothing could get to him. "I don't have money," Eli whispered when the menu hit the table. Mason's answer was immediate. "I do." Hot chocolate arrived first. Eli wrapped both hands around the mug like it was proof the heat was real. His fingers were still shaking when the toast came. He tried to eat like he wasn't starving, but his stomach betrayed him with a low, embarrassing growl. Rosie pretended not to hear. Mason pretended not to hear. That was its own kind of mercy. Mason set the helmet on the table between them and turned it over carefully. He found the strip of red ribbon stitched inside the liner and went still. Eli swallowed. "I didn't see that." "I know," Mason said, voice rough. "That ribbon was tied there by someone I can't get back." A police cruiser rolled past the window, slow, counting bikes. Mason watched it go. His phone buzzed. Club chat. He answered. "Yeah." "You got it?" a voice demanded. "You find who took it?" "I got the helmet," Mason said. "And nobody took it. Kid found it and brought it back." A beat. "You sure?" Mason looked at Eli's split sneaker, the too big hoodie, the way his shoulders stayed tight like he expected a hit. "I'm sure," Mason said, and ended the call. Eli set down his hands. "If you want me gone, I'll go." Mason shook his head once. "No." Outside, the sky was bruising from black to blue. Mason leaned in. "When you walk out of this diner," he said, "where are you going? And don't tell me you're fine." Eli opened his mouth, closed it, then stared into his hot chocolate like the answer was floating on the surface. "Nowhere," he admitted. "Just away." Mason's eyes didn't soften, but his voice did. "Finish your plate. Then you tell me your last name." He tapped the table once, a decision sealing itself. "And after that, I'm making a call. Because I didn't spend all night hunting this helmet just to watch you walk back into the cold." Eli's last name landed between them like a dropped wrench. "Carter," he said, barely loud enough to rise over the diner's hum. "Eli Carter." Mason nodded once and pulled his phone closer, thumb hovering. "Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from." Outside the fogged window, the same police cruiser rolled by again, slower, like it was taking attendance. Eli tracked it without meaning to. "They're counting," he muttered. "They can count," Mason said. "They can't take what isn't theirs." Eli tried to eat, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. He hated that, hated how hunger made you sloppy. Mason didn't comment. He just sat there with the helmet beside him, the red ribbon hidden inside the liner like a secret he refused to set down. Rosie drifted past their booth, refilling coffee. She paused long enough to slide an extra toast onto Eli's plate like it was a mistake. Her voice stayed flat, aimed at Mason, but meant for Eli. "Eat. It's on the house." Eli opened his mouth to refuse. Mason cut it off with a small shake of his head. "Say thank you." "Thank you," Eli murmured, cheeks hot. Across the room, one of the bikers peeled off his own hoodie and draped it over the back of Eli's seat without asking. Not on Eli, just there, waiting, an offer without a shove. Mason's phone buzzed. He read a message, jaw tightening, then looked up. "Where's your mom?" Eli's fork froze. "Alive?" Mason added. Eli stared at his plate until the words came out. "I don't know." "How long you been on your own?" Mason asked. "Since November." "It's March," Mason said. Eli nodded once. He didn't need the math explained. "School?" Eli let out a small laugh that felt like a cough. "You need an address." Mason studied him. "Family?" "No one who wants me." Mason didn't look away. "Where was the last place you slept inside?" Eli hesitated, then shrugged. "A church basement, 3 nights. Then they said I wasn't on the list." He swallowed. "Before that?" "Holt's." The name sat there, ugly and heavy. Mason's gaze slid to Eli's knuckles. "You fight somebody?" Eli blinked. "No." Mason lifted an eyebrow. "At the bus stop," Eli admitted. "Some guy tried to grab the helmet. He said I stole it. I told him it wasn't mine. He shoved me. I shoved back." Mason's eyes narrowed. "You got hurt?" "It's fine." Mason tapped Eli's sleeve near the elbow. Eli hissed before he could stop himself. Mason went still. "Show me." Eli rolled his sleeve up just enough. A bruise bloomed purple and yellow along his forearm, the shape of fingers. "That wasn't the bus stop," Mason said. Eli's mouth tightened. "It was from before." Mason's fingers brushed the helmet liner again, controlled. "Tell me about before." Eli swallowed. "Holt." "Holt who?" "Randy Holt. He's my placement." Mason's posture locked. "Foster." Eli nodded, face hardening like armor. "If a cop finds me, they call Randy. He shows up smiling. He says I run off when I get mad. Then I go back." "Back where?" Mason asked. Eli stared down. "A trailer behind a storage yard." Mason's eyes dropped to Eli's wrists. "Does he hit you?" Eli flinched at the word, then shrugged too fast. "It's not like movies." "Eli." Eli's jaw worked. "He locks the pantry," he forced out. "Says I'm costing him. If I take food, it's stealing. If I don't, I'm ungrateful. If I talk back, I'm violent." "And the bruises?" Mason asked. Eli's voice lowered. "He grabs. He shakes. He says it's discipline. He says if I complain, nobody will believe a kid like me." Mason's eyes went colder. "Who placed you there?" Eli shrugged, but it was the kind of shrug that meant he'd said the same answer to too many adults. "A lady at the office. She was tired. She said Holt had open beds." "When was the last time you saw a caseworker after that?" Mason asked. Eli blinked like the question surprised him. "Once. She came by. Holt made pancakes. He told her I was finally stabilizing. She smiled at me like she knew me." Eli's mouth twisted. Then she left. Break. The diner doorbell jingled. A man in a stained hoodie stepped in, swept his eyes over the booths, then backed out like he was checking who was inside. Eli's shoulders snapped tight. "That's Duke," he whispered, "one of Randy's friends." Mason didn't turn his head. He just lifted 2 fingers, subtle. Across the room, the braid woman slid off her stool and drifted toward the window. Another biker stood, walked to the register like he was paying, and positioned himself where he could see the lot. Mason reached into his vest and slid a folded receipt across the table. A phone number was written on it in hard pen strokes. "This is Marla," Mason said. "Lawyer, I'm calling her." Eli's pulse jumped. "Don't put me in a system." I'm not putting you anywhere, Mason said. I'm figuring out what already has your name on it. Mason dialed. It rang twice. Marla, a woman answered, sharp and awake. If this is about bail, I'm billing you. It's Mason. A pause. Iron. What did you do? Nothing, Mason said. That's why I'm calling. I've got a kid here, Eli Carter, fostered under Randy Holt. He's been out since November. Holt keeps his paperwork. I need to know what I can do today. Marla's tone cooled into business. Does the kid want help? Mason looked at Eli. Help always had strings, but Mason's face didn't offer pity. It offered a choice. Eli nodded once. Yes. D.O.B., Marla asked. August 19th, 2012, Eli said. Keyboard clicks sounded faint through the speaker. Outside, the cruiser that had been circling finally stopped and idled at the curb. Marla came back. He's in the state database. Active note, runaway, return to guardian. Eli went cold. That means they'll come get me. Listen, Marla said. It also says Holt's license is under review. Mason's eyes narrowed. For what? Complaints, Marla replied. No details, but enough to matter. Do not hand him to anyone without verified paperwork. If there's abuse, we need a report and a safe placement. I can call a social worker I trust, but it won't be instant. Mason's gaze cut to the cruiser. Instant might be happening anyway. Marla's voice hardened. Then get names, record everything, be polite, and if Holt shows up, do not let him isolate the child. Mason ended the call. The officer stepped out of the cruiser and walked into the diner with slow, practiced confidence, like he expected the room to move for him. His name tag read, Barnes. He approached the booth, eyes flicking to Patches, then to Eli. Morning, he said. Got a call about a group in the lot and a kid. We're eating, Mason said, calm. And the kid's eating. Barnes's gaze dropped to Eli's bruised arm. Eli pulled his sleeve down. You his parent? Barnes asked. No, Mason said, but I'm not handing him to anyone on vibes. Barnes sighed like he'd heard that line 100 times from men who thought they were heroes. I ran it. Randy Holt's listed as guardian. Eli's chest collapsed. No, he whispered. Mason didn't move. And Holt's license? Under review? Barnes's eyes sharpened. How do you know that? Because a lawyer checked, Mason said. So now you can do this the easy way or the correct way. Barnes looked around the diner. A few bikers had lifted their phones, not pointed like weapons, just held low, recording like witnesses. Rosie's mouth was a thin line as she wiped the counter, listening. Barnes lowered his voice. Kid's a runaway. That's the note. I'm obligated. Mason's answer was just as quiet. And I'm obligated not to hand a kid to a man under complaints without a supervisor verifying the situation. Barnes's jaw tightened. You want a supervisor? Fine. He touched his shoulder radio. Dispatch, I need a sergeant at Rosie's on 9th. Eli's heartbeat pounded so hard his ears rang. He stared at the table, trying to disappear. Barnes looked at Eli. Son, you gotta come with me. Eli's fingers locked around the edge of the booth seat. Running screamed in his muscles. Mason leaned close to Eli, low enough that only he heard. Don't run, he said. Let them do it on paper. Eli swallowed. They'll take me back. Mason shook his head once. Not without a fight. The bell jingled again. Duke stepped inside, but this time he wasn't alone. A second man followed. Clean jeans, nice boots, a smile that didn't match his eyes. He scanned the diner once, then locked onto Eli like he'd spotted missing property. There you are, the man said, voice sweet as syrup. Hey, buddy, time to come home. Eli's blood turned to ice because he knew that smile. Randy Holt. Eli felt Mason's booth slide shift beside him, slow and deliberate, as if the whole diner had just tightened into a fist. Randy Holt walked into Rosie's like he owned the place. Clean jacket, neat hair, a smile that looked kind from a distance and poisonous up close. There you are, Holt said, warm and loud. I've been worried sick, buddy. Eli's fingers locked on the booth. Don't call me that. Holt turned to Officer Barnes. Morning, officer. Thank God you're here. This kid's been running again. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. Mason didn't move. The helmet sat on the table between him and Eli like a brick. I'm his guardian, Holt continued, flashing papers. Foster placement. He bolts when he doesn't get his way. Show the paperwork, Mason said. Holt handed over a folded placement letter. Barnes scanned it, then looked at Eli. Eli, is this your guardian? Eli's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His body screamed, run. Mason leaned back slightly, giving him room instead of pressure. Answer him, he said, quiet. On your terms. He's the guy they sent me to, Eli managed. I don't want to go back. Holt gave a soft laugh, like Eli had said something childish. Because he had rules, curfew, school, structure. And locks, Eli blurted. The word hung in the booth. Holt's eyes sharpened. He's confused, Holt said to Barnes. Trauma kid, lies to get attention. Mason tapped the helmet once. This kid returned my helmet, found it at the bus stop and brought it back. It's not a thief. Holt's gaze dropped to the gouged visor. A flicker crossed his face. Recognition, then calculation. Kids like him can look honest, Holt said. They're not. Eli's voice cracked. I didn't steal anything. Holt stepped closer, voice turning gentle for public consumption. Eli, come outside with me. We'll talk. Mason's forearm shifted an inch, blocking the edge of the booth without touching Eli. He's not going outside with you. And who are you? Holt asked. A witness, Mason said. Barnes cleared his throat. Mr. Holt, Eli says he doesn't want to return. Do you know why he left? Holt didn't miss a beat. He stole money. I confronted him. He got physical. I filed a report. That's not what happened, Eli said. Mason nodded at Eli's sleeve. Show him. Eli hesitated, then rolled his sleeve up. The bruise on his forearm was finger-shaped. Barnes's gaze narrowed. How did you get that? Holt shrugged. He roughhouses. Comes home bruised. From the counter, Rosie said, flat. That's a grab, not a fall. The diner bell jingled. Duke drifted in and leaned against the wall by the door. Eli recognized him instantly. One of Mason's riders raised his phone a little higher. Holt noticed the phones and laughed. Perfect. Everybody's filming. Officer, you see what I deal with? He runs off with strangers and they think they're heroes. Mason didn't look away from Holt. Nobody's a hero. We're just not blind. Barnes's patience thinned. All right, everyone keep calm. No one touches the kid. Holt held up both hands. I'm not touching him. I'm taking him home. Eli whispered. I don't have a home. Holt leaned in fast, voice low and sharp, not in front of them. Eli flinched. Mason saw it. Mason's eyes went flat. Back up. Barnes looked at Eli again. Eli, I need to know if you're in immediate danger with your guardian. Eli's throat burned. He pictured the storage yard, the trailer behind it, the shed door with the hook on the outside. He locks me in the shed when he's mad, Eli said. Holt's smile vanished. That is not true. Eli kept going, shaking. He keeps my papers. He says if I leave, he'll tell everyone I'm a thief. He says nobody believes kids like me. Holt slammed his palm on the table. Enough. The whole diner froze. Barnes's hand went to his belt. Mason didn't move an inch. Don't you raise your hand in here. Barnes swallowed and lifted his radio. If there are allegations of confinement or abuse, I have to report it. I'm calling a supervisor in child services. Holt's voice went tight. Officer, you're being manipulated. Barnes radioed anyway. Holt leaned toward Eli, low and venomous. You just ruined your life. Eli went pale. Mason leaned in, not touching. Look at me, he murmured. Breathe. Break. Holt straightened and pulled out another document in a plastic sleeve. Emergency pickup order, he announced. Return him directly to my custody. Today. Barnes read, frowned. This date, it's valid, Holt cut in. Renewed automatically. Mason's voice stayed calm. Read it out loud. Barnes's jaw tightened. It expired 2 weeks ago. Holt smiled like Barnes was being difficult. Then call it in. Barnes radioed dispatch to verify. Rain ticked on the window like a countdown. Mason's phone buzzed. A text from Marla. Don't let him leave with the child. Keep him visible. Supervisor en route. Mason angled the screen so Barnes could see. Barnes read, then looked at Holt with new suspicion. Holt's eyes narrowed. Who's Marla? Someone who reads, Mason said. Holt scoffed. A biker lawyer? Cute. He needs structure. He needs me. Eli's hands shook around the mug. You need the check, he whispered. Silence. Holt snapped his head toward him. What did you say? Eli couldn't take it back. The money you get for me. Rosie stopped moving. Duke's jaw clenched. Barnes stared at Holt like he'd never really seen him before. Holt recovered fast. He's lying. Mason's tone didn't change, but it cut. Do you get paid to house him, Holt? Holt's smile went thin. That's none of your business. It's exactly my business, Barnes said quietly. Break. Sergeant Alvarez arrived and took in the room in one sweep. The guardian with paperwork, the officer at the booth, the kid trapped in a corner, the riders sitting like silent witnesses. Barnes briefed him fast. Runaway juvenile, foster guardian present, allegations of abuse. Order appears expired. Alvarez looked at Holt. You're the guardian. Yes, Holt said quickly, and I want my child returned, now. Alvarez turned to Eli. Do you feel safe going with Mr. Holt right now? Every survival instinct told Eli to nod yes and pay for it later. Mason didn't speak. He just waited. Eli swallowed. No. Holt's face tightened. Eli, Alvarez lifted a hand. Stop. Nobody is leaving with the child until CPS arrives and we verify your status in any active orders. Holt's voice rose. That's ridiculous. It's policy, Alvarez said, and it's common sense. Alvarez nodded toward the door. Mr. Holt, you can wait outside. Barnes will take your statement. The child stays here, visible, with staff present. Holt took one step toward the booth anyway, reaching like he meant to grip Eli's arm and end the debate. Mason moved in a single, controlled motion, standing, body between Holt and the booth, palms open. No swing, no shove, just a wall. Holt stopped short. Duke shifted off the wall. Alvarez's voice dropped to steel. Mr. Holt, outside, now. Holt forced the smile back onto his face and leaned toward Eli like he was still the caring adult. I'll be right outside, buddy. We're going home. Mason's voice dropped. Call him Buddy again, and every camera in this diner will remember your face. Holt's smile held, but his eyes went dead. He turned and walked out with Duke trailing behind him. Through the window, Eli watched Holt stop under the awning and pull out his phone. He didn't call the county. He called someone else. Rosie slid a glass of water to Eli without a word. Eli drank, spilling some down his chin, then wiped it with his sleeve like he was ashamed of needing anything. One by one, the riders in the booths put their phones down, but they didn't leave. Outside, the line of bikes stayed parked like a promise. No chaos, no violence, just presence. Inside, the diner exhaled all at once. Eli's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Alvarez kept his eyes on the window. Nobody follows him, he warned, like he could sense the temptation in the room. You want to help this kid, you help him by staying clean. Mason nodded once. We're clean. Barnes's radio crackled. He stepped aside to listen, then came back with a different face. Dispatch confirms the pickup order is not active, he said, and child services is en route. Holt was still outside, phone pressed to his ear, shoulders tight. He paced under the awning like a man trying to control his breathing. Eli whispered, almost to himself, when he makes calls like that, someone shows up. Mason followed Holt with his eyes. Who does he call? Eli swallowed. People who don't ask questions. Alvarez stared through the glass a long moment. Then we make sure the right people get here first, he said. Outside, Holt turned his back to the diner, speaking faster now, and Duke drifted closer to him like a shadow. Holt stayed under the awning, back to the diner, talking fast into his phone and checking the window like he was counting seconds. Duke hovered a few steps behind him, pretending to scroll while he watched the door. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. Barnes's radio crackled. CPS is 90 minutes out, maybe longer. Eli's face drained. 90 minutes meant Holt had 90 minutes to bend the world back into the shape he wanted. Mason showed Sergeant Alvarez a text from Marla. Get him off site. Public place is good until it's not. If he has friends, they'll try a recovery. Alvarez didn't hesitate. We're moving to the county building. Cameras, security, and family services upstairs. Holt can argue in front of clerks and deputies, not in a parking lot. Chairs scraped, bills got paid, riders stood calm but alert. Nobody said, let's go. They didn't need to. The moment the door opened, Holt swung around like he'd been waiting for a cue. Smile on, voice soft. Officer, thank God. I'll take him now. Alvarez blocked him with a flat palm. No, verification first. Verification? Holt laughed, too bright. He's a runaway. You're wasting time. I'm buying time, Alvarez said, and his tone made Holt step back. Eli climbed into the back of the cruiser. Safe glass, child locks, the kind of safety that still felt like a cage. Mason's Harley rolled beside the cruiser as they pulled out, and Eli found himself staring at Mason's shoulder like it was a wall that could hold. In the rear window, Holt's pickup fell in behind them. He's following, Eli whispered. I see it, Mason said, glancing back once, then facing forward. 2 blocks later, a dark sedan slipped out behind Holt's truck. Duke sat in the passenger seat leaning forward like he was hunting a gap. The sedan surged at the next light, trying to wedge between Mason and the cruiser, separate the bike, isolate the car. Mason didn't swerve. He held his lane and bled off speed by inches. The sedan had to choose. It backed off at the last second, horns screaming into the rain like noise could change physics. Alvarez leaned toward the divider. Barnes, I want another unit, and I want it now. Barnes radioed it in. Possible interference by Guardian Associates. They're trying to cut in. The county building rose out of the rain, concrete and bright under security lamps. The cruiser pulled under the covered drop-off. Holt's pickup rolled in right behind it, tires splashing as it stopped too close. Alvarez stepped out first and planted himself between Holt and the cruiser door. Mr. Holt, you will not approach the child. Holt lifted both hands. I'm calm. I'm cooperating. I just want my kid. Duke and 2 other men stepped out of the sedan. Eli didn't know their names, but he knew the look. Men who smiled only when someone else was trapped. Eyes up, Mason murmured, not to the men, into his helmet mic. 2 riders shifted positions without rushing, one near the entrance, one near the parking ramp. Not blocking, just watching. Inside, security made everyone empty pockets and pass the metal detector. A guard eyed the biker vests. Those stay outside. Patches cause problems. Mason didn't argue. He stripped his cutoff, folded it, handed it to the braid woman. Hold it. Others did the same, calm as if they were used to swallowing pride to keep a kid safe. Holt walked through untouched, clean jacket, clean hands, then turned and smiled at Eli like he'd won a round. Family Services was a glass window, a waiting room, and a sign that said, Have I'd ready. The clerk behind the glass didn't look up when Alvarez explained the situation. Take a number, she said. Barnes stared. Ma'am, we have a child with abuse allegations, and the guardian is present. She pointed at the ticket machine like it was the only law she recognized. Alvarez took a number anyway. They waited. Holt sat across the room with Duke and the 2 men flanking him like furniture. Holt kept his voice low, smiling, talking as if he was discussing weekend plans. But every time Eli shifted in his seat, Holt's eyes tracked him. Mason leaned closer to Eli. Don't answer him if he speaks to you. If you need air, tell Alvarez. You don't move alone. Eli nodded, throat tight. A digital screen beeped, their number. A worker with tired eyes and a badge that read Patel appeared at the window. Alvarez gave the summary. Patel typed, clicked, frowned. Eli Carter, she read, assigned to Randolph Holt. Note, runaway, return to Guardian. Barnes stiffened. That pickup order expired. Patel tapped the monitor. County View doesn't show an expiration. Mason's phone buzzed again. Marla. Ask for state portal, county lags, get a supervisor if they refuse. Alvarez didn't blink. Pull the state portal. Patel hesitated, then clicked deeper, the way someone does when they know they're about to find something they can't unsee. The room stayed loud with waiting room noise, but Eli heard his own heartbeat like a drum. Patel's face changed. His license is flagged, she said quietly. Under investigation. Holt stood up so fast his chair skidded. This is ridiculous, he called. He lies, he steals, he runs. These people, he nodded at Mason like Mason was an infection. They picked him up and coached him. Alvarez turned without raising his voice. Sit down, Mr. Holt. You're not addressing the child. Holt kept standing. Officer, I'm reporting an abduction. Barnes's eyes narrowed. You already did. Holt lifted his phone. I'm doing it now. Mason didn't move, but his voice dropped. You file that. You're admitting you've got nothing else. Holt smiled at him. Or I'm proving you do. Barnes stepped aside, radio pressed to his shoulder. Dispatch answered, then Barnes's face tightened. He's on the line with 911, Barnes said to Alvarez, claiming kidnapping. Alvarez exhaled once, controlled. Fine. We do this clean. Patel, what do you need for an emergency hold? Patel glanced at Eli through the glass. Credible risk and a welfare check at the placement address, and identification for the child, birth certificate, school record, anything. Eli's cheeks burned. I don't have any. Patel looked up. Mr. Holt, where are the child's documents? Holt's smile returned, polished. Secured. For safekeeping. He steals. Eli's voice jumped out of him. So I can't leave. Barnes's jaw flexed. Also need the placement address, now. Patel read from her screen. Eli shook his head hard. That's not where I lived. Patel blinked. It's what's on file. Eli swallowed. He keeps me behind the storage yard off Millbrook. Trailer in back. Shed behind it. Holt's smile died. His eyes went flat. Eli, stop talking. Alvarez stepped closer to Holt, not threatening, just present. You don't speak to him. Barnes keyed his radio. Dispatch, immediate welfare check. Storage yard off Millbrook. Trailer behind the yard. Possible shed confinement. Guardian Associates possibly en route. Patel's voice went quieter. If that address isn't on file, that's a major violation. Holt snapped. He's making it up. Eli turned toward the glass and pushed his sleeve up again, showing the bruise like he was offering the only proof he had. That's from him, he said. Not the street. Patel's eyes softened for a fraction, then hardened into procedure. I need his statement, in private. She opened a side door. Alvarez nodded at Eli. Go with her. I'm right outside. Eli stood, legs stiff, and followed Patel down a short hall into a small interview room with a bolted table and a camera in the corner. The quiet in there felt like pressure. Patel sat across from him, voice steady. Facts only. What is the shed? How's it locked? It's metal, Eli said. Behind the trailer, like a storage unit. He hooks the latch from the outside. Padlock. He swallowed hard. He puts me in there when he's mad. How long? Patel asked. Until he decides, Eli said. Sometimes hours, sometimes... He forgets. His voice cracked on that word. Patel typed faster. When was the last time? 2 nights before I ran. Through the narrow window in the door, Eli saw Holt talking urgently to Duke. Duke nodded once and slipped toward the stairwell like a man going to do a job. One of Mason's riders drifted after him at a distance, hands visible, no sprint, just a shadowing presence. Eli's stomach dropped. He's sending him to the yard. Patel's head snapped up. To destroy evidence? Eli nodded, scared to say it out loud like saying it could make it happen. Patel grabbed the wall phone. Dispatch, expedite that unit. Now. Child State's Guardian Associates may be heading there. A radio crackled outside the room. Alvarez's voice tight. Unit 12, confirm you're on Millbrook. Static. Then a deputy, breathy and close to his mic. Arriving now. We've got the trailer in sight. There's a metal shed behind it. Doors shut. Sergeant, the lock is on the outside and there's... The transmission cut off mid-sentence. The deputy's voice had cut out mid-sentence, and for a second, the entire county building held its breath. Static hissed from Barnes's shoulder radio. Unit 12, repeat, Sergeant Alvarez snapped. Unit 12, I need your status. Nothing? Eli sat across from Ms. Patel with his hands clenched so tight, his nails bit skin. The camera above the door blinked red, recording every tremor in his jaw. He forced air into his lungs. He's there, he whispered. Duke, if he gets there first, he'll... Patel grabbed the wall phone. Dispatch, I need a second unit to Millbrook right now. Possible interference, possible destruction of evidence. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. Alvarez's voice came through the door, sharp and close. Patel, wrap it. We're escalating to emergency hold. Patel covered the receiver and leaned toward Eli. Stay with me. Facts only. Eli's eyes flicked to the door like it might open, and Holt would be standing there with that smile. He's going to say I'm lying. Then we write down what you can prove, Patel said. Tell me about the shed. Size, lock, anything inside. Eli swallowed. Metal, no window, hook latch. Padlock goes on from the outside. His voice thinned. Red tag on the lock. How do you know it's always the same lock? Patel asked. Because he clicks it in my face, Eli said, shame rising. He says, "This is you learning." Patel's fingers paused over the keyboard. Food access? The pantry's locked, Eli said. Even cereal. And my papers are in a metal box. He said I don't get them until I earn being a person. Patel's jaw tightened. Any cameras? Eli nodded. On the trailer. He told me if I accuse him, he'll show everyone what I'm really like. Break. In the hallway, Mason stood with his back to the wall, hands visible, calm the way a storm cloud is calm before lightning. He'd taken his vest off without argument. He wasn't here to posture. He was here to keep Eli in view. Through the glass into the waiting room, Randy Holt watched them like a man watching his own property get relabeled. Duke's chair was empty now. Holt's two friends sat with their phones out, eyes flicking between doors. Holt stood up and started toward the exit. Alvarez stepped into his path. "Mr. Holt, you're not leaving until the welfare check is complete." Holt laughed, too bright. "You can't hold me here." Barnes's eyes stayed on him. "Try." Holt's smile tightened. He glanced down the hallway where Eli was. "You're letting criminals coach him." Mason's voice was flat. "You mean witnesses?" Holt turned, slow, and sat back down like he was choosing patience instead of running out of options. Break. The wall speaker crackled. A voice pushed through, breathy and urgent, then chopped into static again. "Unit 12, at the shed. Lock is..." Silence. Patel went pale. "Why is he cutting out?" Eli's stomach rolled. "Duke carries a jammer." Patel snapped back to the phone. "Dispatch, are we getting signal disruption?" After a pause. "Yes, ma'am. Interference in that area." "Send backup now," Patel said. "Priority." She looked at Eli. "Anything else about the shed?" Eli hesitated. "Sometimes I heard scratching, like something moving." He swallowed. "I told myself it was rats." Patel's eyes hardened. "We're not telling ourselves stories anymore." Patel slid the protective custody form closer. "I'm filing this as an emergency. It buys us hours, maybe a day, until CPS can place you somewhere safe." Eli stared at the signature line. His hand shook as he picked up the pen. "If I sign," he whispered, "he can't just take me." "Not legally," Patel said. "And if he tries, it becomes a different kind of case." Eli signed anyway. The ink looked too dark, like a bruise on paper. Outside the room, raised voices flared. Holt, sharp and irritated, then Alvarez shutting him down, firm. Eli flinched at the sound, then forced himself to stay seated. "Eyes on me," Patel said, "not on him." Break. Millbrook's storage looked like a place meant to disappear people. Rows of containers, mud, a trailer tucked behind the stacks like someone hid it on purpose. Behind it stood the metal shed, plain, windowless with a padlock on the outside latch. Deputy Collins stepped out, body cam blinking. Deputy Shue swept her flashlight across the ground, drag marks in the mud. A trail from the trailer steps to the shed. Shue touched the metal and pulled her hand back. "Warm." Collins tried his radio. Static choked it. An engine roared in the front lot, too fast. A black sedan burst into the yard and skidded sideways, spraying mud. It didn't belong back here. It knew where to go. Duke climbed out with a smile and bolt cutters in his hand, like he'd come to fix something. Shue lifted her palm. "Sheriff's Department, drop the cutters." Duke's smile didn't move. "I'm here for the kids' stuff. Guardian's request." Collins shifted to block the shed. "You're not touching that lock." "Private property," Duke said. "So is a jail," Collins shot back. "Doesn't make it legal." Duke sighed. "Keys in the trailer. I can show you. You just gotta relax." Shue's voice sharpened. "You're not going near that trailer either." Duke's gaze flicked once toward the yard entrance, measuring time. Shue kept her stance wide, one hand near her radio that wasn't working. "Step away from the shed." Duke's smile stayed glued on. "You're making this dramatic. I'm maintenance." "Maintenance doesn't show up with cutters," Collins said. Duke tilted his head. "Locks jam. People improvise." From the far entrance of the yard, a motorcycle idled behind the fence line. One of Mason's riders staying back, recording through the rain so nobody could claim this was a story later. Duke noticed the bike and his smile twitched. "Oh," he said softly. "So that's what this is." He looked at Shue. "You want the key?" Fine. But if you're wrong, you're harassing a guardian. Sue didn't blink. Then I'll take that report in court. Then his hand dipped into his pocket. Break. Back at the county building, Mason's phone vibrated, one line from the writer shadowing Duke. He went in with cutters, cops at shed. Mason showed Alvarez. Alvarez's face tightened. Good, now it's on record. Holt heard shed and his mask cracked. He shot up from his chair and moved fast, straight for the hallway. Barnes grabbed his arm. Stop. Holt twisted and drove an elbow into Barnes's ribs. Barnes grunted, grip loosening for half a heartbeat. Holt bolted. Mason stepped into the corridor mouth and raised his hands, open, clear, non-violent, like a door that refused to be kicked in. Holt slammed into him anyway. Mason held, not striking, just containing, while Alvarez closed in and snapped cuffs on Holt's wrists. Holt's face went red. You can't arrest me. Alvarez's voice was ice. You just assaulted an officer and attempted to interfere with protective custody. Phones were up all around them now. The building had its own witnesses. One of Holt's friends stood up like he might argue, then saw Barnes hunched, breathing through pain, and thought better of it. He backed toward the exit anyway. Alvarez pointed. Sit down. The man hesitated, then sat. Holt's other friend lifted his phone to his ear, whispering fast. Mason caught the movement and texted a single word to his rider in the lot. Watch. No threats, no bravado, just a warning that the room had eyes. Holt stopped struggling long enough to spit. You don't know who you're dealing with. Alvarez stared back. I'm dealing with you. Break. At Millbrook, Duke's thumb flicked in his pocket. Collins's radio died, not even static, just dead air. Duke smiled wider. Now we're just talking. He lunged for the lock. Sue grabbed his wrist. Duke ripped free and swung the bolt cutters like a club. Metal clipped Sue's shoulder with a dull crack. She stumbled back, teeth clenched. Collins surged in, slamming Duke against the shed door. The cutters splashed into mud. Duke twisted, drove an elbow into Collins's gut, then whipped a small can up and fired. Pepper spray hit Collins full in the face. Fire and blindness. He staggered back, choking. Collins wiped at his eyes with his sleeve, but it only smeared the burn deeper. Somewhere beyond the containers, a siren wailed faintly, backup trying to find the right turn in the maze, while the jammer kept his world silent. Through burning tears, he saw Duke scoop up the cutters again and clamp them onto the padlock. The metal screamed. Inside the shed, something thumped once against the door. Not wind. A fist. Duke froze for half a second, listening, then yanked harder. The lock snapped. The shed door cracked open, darkness spilling out, and a thin, shaking voice leaked into the rain. Please, don't. The shed door creaked wider, and the smell that came out wasn't mildew. It was ammonia, sweat, old fear. A small shape was crouched in the darkness, knees pulled to chest, arms overhead like the world had taught him that the safest posture was, don't make yourself a target. Not Eli, a younger boy, maybe 10, too thin, face blotched from crying and dirt. Please, the kid whispered again, voice shredded. Don't lock it. Duke's grin flickered, just for a heartbeat, like he hadn't expected witnesses to come with a second victim. Sue, one arm hanging useless, planted herself between the open shed and Duke. Step back, she snapped. Now. Duke's eyes darted over her shoulder, calculating exits. That kid's trespassing, he said quickly. He breaks in here. We were getting him out. Collins was still choking on pepper spray, half blind, bent at the waist, trying to breathe through fire. The biker behind the fence line didn't move closer, just kept recording, rain streaking his phone screen while the audio caught everything. Shu's voice shook with adrenaline, not fear. If he broke in, why's the lock on the outside? Duke's smile tried to come back. I didn't put it there. Sue pointed at the mud. Your footprints go to the trailer and back, yours, and you showed up with cutters. The younger boy made a sound like a sob swallowed too late and flinched deeper into the shed, nails scraping metal as he tried to vanish. Sue looked at him. Hey, you're okay. What's your name? The boy blinked at her like names were dangerous. Ty, he stammered. Tyler. You're not in trouble, Tyler, Sue said. You understand me? Tyler nodded fast, tears sliding down his face. Duke shifted his weight. We're done here, he muttered, and started backing away. Sue stepped toward him. Hands where I can see them. Duke lifted his hands, then dropped them toward his jacket like he was reaching for something else. Break. At the county building, Eli jumped at every raised voice in the hallway. He sat in a plastic chair with Patel beside him. Alvarez posted at the door like a guard dog with a badge. Holt was cuffed to a bench in a side corridor, still running his mouth. "You're ruining a good man's name," Holt spat. "That kid's a liar. You'll see. You'll all see." Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. Barnes held his ribs, breathing through pain, while a deputy took Holt's statement. Holt kept glancing toward the exit like he expected someone to bust him out. Mason's phone buzzed again. A video thumbnail. Rain, a shed, Duke, a child's voice. Mason didn't play it out loud. He showed Alvarez the screen. Alvarez's face went hard. "Multiple victims," he said quietly. Then he looked at Eli. "Eli, there's another kid at the yard." Eli's eyes widened. "He kept someone else?" Mason's voice dropped. "Looks like it." Eli's chest tightened. "He said I was the only problem. He said nobody else was like me." Patel stood. "This changes everything." Her hands were shaking now too, but not from fear, anger. "If there's another child locked in a shed, this becomes immediate removal, statewide." Alvarez grabbed his radio, voice clipped. "Dispatch update. We have potential second juvenile victim at Millbrook. I want SWAT-level response if interference continues." "I want medics staged," Static answered. Then a new voice cut through, breathy. "Sergeant, we found a second child. Appears malnourished. Guardian associate on scene. He's escalating." Alvarez's jaw flexed. "Hold him. Back up his minutes out. Break, Millbrook Yard." Duke's hand slid toward his jacket again, but this time Collins, eyes still streaming, heard the zipper and lunged on instinct, tackling Duke into the mud. They hit hard. Duke grunted and tried to twist free, but Collins hooked an arm and rolled, using body weight more than vision. Shu stumbled in, one-handed, slamming her good palm onto Duke's wrist and wrenching it away from the jacket. Something small skittered out of Duke's hand and disappeared into the mud, metallic, fast. "Knife?" Shu barked. "Something," Collins rasped, face burning. Duke bucked like an animal, then went still, breathing hard, eyes flicking to the open shed. Tyler tried to crawl out, then froze at the chaos and shrank back, whimpering. Shu shouted over her shoulder, "Tyler, stay right there, okay? Stay put until I say." Tyler nodded, tiny and frantic. Duke spat mud. "You're making this worse for the kid." Collins coughed a laugh that sounded like pain. "You don't get to talk about worse." The wail of sirens grew louder, real now, not distant. Duke's eyes narrowed. He understood the math. He'd lost time. He stopped fighting and slid into a calm that wasn't peace. It was performance. "I want my lawyer," Duke said. "You'll get him," Shu snapped, "after you tell us who put children in that shed." Duke smiled, slow. "Ask Randy." Break. Back at the county building, Holt heard the name Duke in the hallway and lunged against his cuffs. "You idiots!" he hissed, voice suddenly low, furious. "Duke's a nobody." Alvarez stepped close. "Then why is he doing your errands?" Holt's eyes flashed. "Because you people made me." Barnes's voice was strained. "He assaulted me. He interfered with custody. He's done." Holt's smile came back like a blade. "You think you've won. That kid is still mine on paper." Patel snapped. "Not anymore." She held up her screen. "Emergency hold filed. Approved by supervisor. Effective immediately. Eli Carter is now in protective custody pending placement." Eli's breath hitched. The words sounded unreal, like someone had finally taken a lock off the outside of his life. Holt stared at Eli, and for the first time, the smile cracked into something honest. Hate. "You'll come crawling back," Holt said softly, so only Eli could hear. "They'll get tired of you." Eli's throat tightened. He looked at Mason, terrified of believing. Mason didn't offer a speech. He just nodded once, like, "Not today." Break. At Millbrook, medics wrapped Tyler in a foil blanket and guided him to an ambulance. He flinched at every touch until a paramedic crouched and spoke softly, letting him hold the blanket edge like he controlled something. Collins finally got water into his eyes, blinking through the burn. The biker by the fence line sent the video to Mason with a single line. "It's worse than we thought." Shu watched Duke being cuffed. "Jammer's still running," she said. A tech deputy moved through the mud and found a small black device half buried, battery blinking. He snapped it off and suddenly radios came alive in a chorus of overlapping voices. Unit 12, status, backup on scene. Sergeant, we have... Collins exhaled like sound itself was oxygen. Shu looked at the shed again, open and empty now, rain dripping from the door like it was bleeding. Search the trailer, she ordered, now. Deputies moved in. 1 minute later, a deputy stepped back out, face gray. We found a metal lockbox, he said, papers. IDs multiple. Shu's stomach dropped. How many? The deputy swallowed. More than 2. Break. At the county building, Alvarez got the update in his ear and looked at Eli like he was trying to choose the gentlest truth. Eli, he said, they found other kids' documents at the yard. Eli's voice came out thin. Other kids, like Tyler? Alvarez nodded. Yes. Eli's hands started shaking again, not from fear this time, rage and grief colliding. Mason's phone buzzed, new messages stacking from riders. Where do you need us? What's the call, Iron? Say the word. Mason stared at the screen, then typed one sentence into the club thread. Need witnesses at dawn. County building. Bring respect. Bring quiet. He hit send. Eli looked at him. What did you do? Mason's eyes stayed on Eli. I asked for help, he said. Outside, the rain eased for the first time all morning, like the city was taking a breath before something bigger arrived. By 11:17 p.m., the county building looked the same from the outside. Plain concrete, fluorescent lights, wet sidewalks. But inside, everything had changed. Eli sat with a thin blanket over his shoulders in a small conference room Patel had borrowed for the night. A paper cup of soup steamed in front of him, untouched. His body wanted sleep. His brain refused it. Mason stood near the window, phone glowing in his hand, watching message after message stack up. Confirmed. On my way. Bringing Marla's number to a friend. 2 bikes or 20? I can be there in an hour. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. Sergeant Alvarez came in with a folder thick enough to look like a weapon. He set it down and rubbed his face like the day had lasted a week. They're processing the yard, he said. Lockbox is full. Multiple names. Some are listed as placements. Some aren't. Eli's throat tightened. So Tyler wasn't a one-off. No, Alvarez said quietly. And that shed wasn't discipline. It was a system. Patel walked in behind him, holding a printed emergency hold authorization with a fresh signature. Eli, you are not leaving this building with anyone except a state-approved transport, she said. That includes well-meaning bikers. Mason lifted his hands, immediate. Understood. Eli didn't look at the paper. He looked at Mason. What happens now? Mason's jaw worked. Now we make sure the truth doesn't get buried in paperwork. Alvarez nodded toward Mason's phone. You sent something out. I asked for witnesses at dawn, Mason said. Not muscle. Witnesses. Patel's eyes narrowed. Witnesses to what, exactly? To the handoff, Mason said. To the signatures. To the fact that this kid is being moved legally. To the fact Holt doesn't get to rewrite tonight. Alvarez exhaled once. If you bring 400 bikes to a county building, I'm going to have a riot on my hands. Mason didn't blink. Then tell me the number that doesn't look like a threat and still can't be ignored. Alvarez stared at him for a long beat, then said, Park them across the street. Keep engines off. No crowding entrances. Mason nodded. Done. Break. Across town, Randy Holt sat in a holding room, cuffed to a steel bench, fury simmering under a forced calm. He'd stopped yelling. That was the part that should have scared Barnes. Holt leaned back, eyes half-lidded, and spoke softly as if he was having a casual conversation. They'll place him, Holt said. Some group home. He'll act out, he'll steal, he'll fight, they'll label him, then he'll run, and the system will do what it always does. Barnes shifted his ribs, wincing. You're not getting him back. Holt smiled without warmth. You think that's the only way I win? Barnes stared. What does that mean? Holt tilted his head. It means you don't know how paperwork works. He glanced at the clock on the wall. And it means the boy's friends don't know how quiet the county gets at 3 in the morning. Break. At 2:41 a.m., a different phone started ringing. Patel's. She answered on the second ring, voice clipped. Patel. A man's voice came through, overly polite. This is Mr. Garrison with Family Services After Hours. I'm looking at the Eli Carter case. I need to confirm his location and authorize an immediate return to guardian custody. Patel's spine went rigid. After Hours doesn't authorize returns, not with an active emergency hold. Supervisor override, Garrison said smoothly. I'm emailing it now. Patel glanced at Alvarez, then at Mason. What's your badge number, Mr. Garrison? A pause. Too long. It's on the email, Garrison said. Patel's eyes hardened. No. Say it. The line clicked dead. Patel stared at her phone, then looked at Alvarez. Someone is impersonating After Hours. Alvarez swore under his breath and immediately called dispatch. I need a watch on the building, now, and I want a unit at every entrance. We have active interference. Mason's fingers flew on his screen. He texted Marla, they're trying a paper play. Possible impersonation. Need you. Marla responded within seconds. Keep all calls. Record. I'm coming. Eli sat up straighter, heart kicking. He's doing it, Eli whispered. He's trying to pull me out with fake papers. Mason turned toward him. Then he just admitted he can't win straight. Break. By 3:12 a.m., 2 uniformed deputies were posted in the hallway. A third sat in the lobby near security. The county building, usually half asleep at night, felt like it was holding a quiet, tense line. Eli tried to drink water. His hands shook too much. He set the cup down before it spilled. Mason crouched beside Eli's chair, keeping his voice low. You did the hardest part already, he said. You told the truth. Eli stared at the floor. Truth doesn't stop people. Power stops people. Mason's eyes didn't leave him. Then we're bringing power that doesn't hit. Power that watches. Break. Outside, in the rain-damp dark, the first Harley rolled into town from the highway and killed its engine at the far curb. Then another. Then 3 more. Not loud, not revving, not performing, just arriving. A rider in a yellow rain jacket walked his bike into a spot and texted Mason, Here, where do you want us? Mason replied, Across the street, engines off, no drama. The rider answered, Copy. Then the group chat exploded with location pins. One by one, taillights pulled in and went dark, turning the street into a silent lineup of machines that had traveled hours just to sit still. Break. At 4:06 a.m., Marla arrived, hair damp, briefcase in hand, eyes fierce. She didn't greet anyone. She opened her laptop right on the conference table. Show me everything, she said. Patel handed over the emergency hold. Alvarez handed over incident logs. Mason slid his phone across with the video from Millbrook, Tyler's voice audible through rain. Marla watched with a tight jaw, then closed the laptop with a sharp snap. All right, she said. Here's the play. She pointed at Alvarez. You're getting a judge on call for an emergency protection order. You're attaching the shed footage and the lockbox inventory. She pointed at Patel. You're flagging every case tied to Holt for immediate review. No more county lag. I want state portal pulled on every name. She pointed at Mason. You keep your people outside, silent, recording their own behavior, so no one can claim intimidation. They are your insurance policy. Their calm is evidence. Mason nodded once. Understood? Marla turned to Eli. Her voice softened, but only slightly. Eli, you're going to answer one question for me. And it matters. Eli swallowed. Okay, Marla leaned in. When you first ran, did Holt ever make you sign anything? Eli froze. The memory hit like a shove. I don't know, he said. He made me write my name on papers. He said it was for school. Marla's expression sharpened. Did you see what the papers said? Eli's stomach turned. No, he covered it with his hand. Alvarez went still. Patel's mouth fell open slightly. Marla's voice dropped to ice. He may have forged consent, or a waiver, or something uglier. Eli's breathing sped up. What does that mean? Marla met his eyes. It means he didn't just want the check, she said. He wanted control that survives a complaint. Outside, faint in the distance, more engines approached, then cut, then more. The street was filling with silent chrome. Eli looked toward the window. How many are there? Mason didn't answer right away. He checked his phone, count messages, pins, riders confirming. His thumb stopped. He lifted his eyes to Alvarez, and for the first time all night, the calm in his face cracked into something that looked like surprise. "They're not bringing 20, Mason said quietly. Alvarez's brow tightened. "How many?" Mason swallowed once and looked back at Eli. "Eli, it's already over 100. Eli's chest tightened, hope and fear tangling. Marla snapped her briefcase open again. "Then we use them," she said. "We use them as the cleanest pressure this county has ever seen." Outside, the last stretch of night held on, thin and stubborn, while the first hint of dawn started to pale the sky. At 5:12 a.m., the county building looked like it had grown a spine overnight. Across the street, Harleys lined the curb in a long, silent chain. Headlights off, engines dead, riders standing beside their bikes with hands visible and posture calm. No revving, no chance, no swagger. Just a presence you couldn't pretend you didn't see. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. Eli stood at the conference room window with the blanket still on his shoulders. The glass was cold against his forehead. He counted bikes until the numbers stopped making sense. Mason came up beside him. "No one's coming in," he said. "They're just here." Eli's voice was thin. "For me?" Mason didn't answer with pride. He answered with fact. "For the truth." Downstairs, Sergeant Alvarez watched the sidewalk through the lobby glass, jaw tight. "If anyone so much as coughs wrong, my chief will call this a threat," he said. Marla set her phone on speaker and hit record. "Then we document how polite everyone is. We document everything." Patel's email pinged, then pinged again, then filled with frantic subject lines. Case review requested, state portal access, emergency override. She opened one and went pale. "Someone tried to submit an override at 3:40, she said, "from an account that doesn't exist." Marla leaned in. "Forward that to the State Inspector General and the DA. Alvarez looked up sharply. "You think the DA moves before coffee?" Marla's mouth was a straight line. "Coffee is irrelevant if there's video of a locked shed and forged paperwork." Break. The lobby doors slid open at 5:26 a.m., and a man in a county windbreaker walked in with 2 aides behind him, hair still wet from a shower. He had the face of someone who hated surprises and had built his whole life to avoid them. "Who authorized this?" he demanded, gesturing at the bikes outside. Alvarez stepped forward. "They're public sidewalk, engines off, no obstruction." The man's eyes flicked to Mason. "Are you in charge of them?" Mason's voice stayed level. "I asked them to witness a legal handoff, nothing more." "Witness?" the man repeated, like the word offended him. Marla stepped up. "County Counsel Marla Henson, if you'd like to remove witnesses, you'll need a reason that holds up in federal court, because the moment you do, it looks like you're helping a guardian accused of locking children in a shed." The man froze. "Children?" one aide echoed. Alvarez handed over the folder. "Millbrook storage, welfare check, shed lock on the outside, second child found, lockbox with multiple IDs. Guardian associate arrested with jammer and pepper spray." The windbreaker man flipped pages fast, then slower. His face changed as the words stacked. "What about the guardian?" he asked. "Randy Holt is in custody for assaulting an officer and interference," Barnes said from behind, voice strained. The man looked around the room like he was recalculating the day. "Where's the child?" "In protective custody upstairs," Patel said. "Who signed the hold?" Patel lifted the authorization. "Supervisor on call, state portal verified." Marla added, "And we're getting a judge on call for an emergency protection order, with video." The windbreaker man swallowed. "We can't have a spectacle." Marla's eyes didn't blink. "Then don't make one by doing anything shady." Break. At 5:49 a.m., local news showed up because local news always smelled a story before the sun. A van rolled to the curb, camera on shoulder, reporter holding a mic like it was a badge. Alvarez stepped outside and raised both hands before anyone could speak. "No interviews," he said, firm. "This is an active child protection case." The reporter's eyes darted to the bikes. "Is this a protest?" Mason stepped forward just enough to be heard, not enough to look like he was challenging. "No," he said, "it's a vigil." The reporter blinked. A vigil for what? Mason didn't give details. For a kid who did the right thing. Inside, Eli watched the camera through the window and felt his stomach knot. Attention was dangerous. Attention meant people could find you. Mason caught the shift in his breathing. "You're safe," Mason said quietly. "No one's saying your last name." Eli swallowed. "They will. Then we make sure the right people hear the right facts first," Marla said. "Not Holt's version." Break. At 6:08 a.m., a judge came on a video call. Hair messy, robe thrown on like a jacket, not happy. Marla spoke first, crisp, no drama. Alvarez summarized. Patel confirmed state portal details. Then Marla played a short clip, just enough. A shed door cracking open, a child's voice. "Please, don't—" A deputy's coughing from spray, the lock snapping. The judge's eyes sharpened in a way Eli could feel through the screen, even from the corner of the room. "How many children are potentially affected?" the judge asked. "We don't know yet," Patel said, but the lockbox had multiple identities. The judge stared at Holt's name on the file. "Emergency protection order granted," she said. "No contact with Eli Carter, no contact with any minor under his care. Immediate removal and statewide review. I want a DA briefing by noon." Alvarez exhaled like a rope had finally snapped loose. Eli didn't cry. He couldn't. His body didn't know how to do relief yet. It only knew how to keep waiting for the next hit. Marla ended the call and looked at Eli. "That order means he can't touch you," she said. "Not legally, not by proxy." Eli whispered, "He doesn't care about legal." Mason's voice cut in, quiet and absolute. "Then we make it impossible." Break. At 6:31 a.m., Holt's phone call finally landed somewhere it couldn't be ignored. A deputy came in and whispered to Alvarez. Alvarez's face tightened, then he nodded once and turned to Marla. "Holt's attorney is filing an emergency motion claiming the child was coerced by gang members and the county is complicit," Alvarez said. Marla didn't look surprised. "Of course he is." Patel's eyes widened. "They're going to paint them as criminals." Marla snapped her fingers. "Good. Then we show what criminals do. Criminals intimidate. Criminals threaten. Criminals hide. These people did the opposite." She nodded toward the window. They stood in the rain with engines off. Mason's phone buzzed again. A message from a writer outside. "News van is here. We're quiet." Mason replied, "Stay quiet, smile if spoken to. No signs." Eli stared at the bikes again. He didn't see angry men. He saw tired faces, wet hair, gloves stuffed in pockets. People who looked like they'd driven through the night and decided the best use of their strength was standing still. Then the lobby doors opened again. A man stepped in wearing a suit that didn't fit the building. Behind him, another county worker. And between them, a thin woman with a clipboard and the kind of expression that said she was already exhausted. "Transport," the suited man announced. "State-approved placement for the child." Eli's chest seized. Placement meant a van, a facility, strangers, new rules, new locks. Patel looked at the paperwork, then nodded. "It's legitimate." Eli's hands clenched. "Where are you taking me?" The woman with the clipboard softened her voice. "Temporary foster emergency bed," she said, "just until we sort longer term." Eli's mouth went dry. "No, I'm not going back to another—" Mason stepped forward, careful. "He needs stability," he said, "a place that can't be manipulated." The suited man's eyes flicked to Mason like Mason was a complication. "We follow procedure," Marla's voice sharpened. "Procedure is how Holt survived. We're done being lazy with children." The suited man stiffened. "Excuse me?" Marla opened her folder and slid a page across. "Judge's order, no contact, state review. And I want the placement address verified and the home inspected before he steps across a threshold." The clipboard woman blinked. "That takes time." Marla didn't flinch. "Then we take time." Eli stared at the door, then at the window, then back at the adults arguing about his life like it was a schedule. And in that moment, he saw it. The crack in the system where Holt could still slip a hand through. Because if they forced him into a van right now, tired and scared, he might run again. And if he ran again, he'd vanish. Mason looked at Eli and understood the thought before Eli said it. "What if he bolts during transport?" Mason asked quietly. The suited man's jaw tightened. We have protocols. Marla's eyes stayed on Eli. Eli, she said, you need to tell me the truth right now. If we put you in that van, will you run? Eli's chest rose and fell fast. He didn't want to be a problem. He didn't want to be difficult. But he couldn't lie anymore. He whispered, yes. The room went still. And outside, across the street, the first thin edge of sunrise touched the chrome like a blade, bright, cold, and unavoidable. The word yes sat in the room like a dropped glass. Eli's shoulders were tight, chin lifted like he was bracing for punishment just for telling the truth. Marla didn't flinch. She nodded once like she'd just been handed the only honest map out of a burning building. Then we don't put you in that van, she said. The suited transport coordinator's face tightened. Ma'am, we have procedure. Marla's voice sharpened. Procedure is not a substitute for safety. Patel's eyes flicked to Alvarez. Alvarez looked at Barnes, then at the hallway deputies, then at the window full of silent bikes. He was weighing something you could feel. Alternative? He asked. Mason spoke quietly, careful with every word. Let him stay here until daylight logistics are solid. Let him move in a way that doesn't trigger the flight response. He doesn't need a van and a stranger right now. He needs one clear step. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. The coordinator exhaled through his nose. County buildings aren't shelters. They are when a judge says child safety is priority, Marla said, and slid the order forward again. Alvarez's phone buzzed. He listened, face tightening, then lowered it. Update from Millbrook, he said. They're finding more. Storage containers with bedding, a list. Holt didn't just keep kids, he moved them. Eli's stomach dropped. Tyler's face flashed in his mind. Blanket wrapped around shoulders like foil. Mason's jaw clenched. How many? Alvarez shook his head once. Unknown. Patel looked sick. If the state gets wind of this, they'll move Eli fast just to look decisive. Marla nodded. Exactly. And that's when mistakes happen. She turned to the coordinator. You want this clean? Give us 2 hours to verify the emergency bed address, confirm the caregiver has no ties to Holt, and arrange a calm transport. The coordinator hesitated. He's a flight risk. Marla's eyes didn't blink. Then keep him in a room with deputies in the hall and cameras on. He's not a criminal. He's terrified. Alvarez made the call. 2 hours, he said. He stays on site. No forced transport until verified placement. The coordinator's mouth tightened, but he nodded. 2. Break. Outside, the vigil grew without growing loud. At 6:58 a.m., more bikes slid in and parked, engines cut immediately. Riders stood in small clusters, hands shoved into pockets, helmets tucked under arms. Some held coffee cups, some held folded ponchos. No signs, no shouting, just bodies saying, "We saw this and you're not alone." A second news van arrived, then a third. Phones appeared on sidewalks. People walking dogs slowed down, stared, whispered. Someone snapped a photo. Someone else started recording the county building like it was a courthouse drama. Alvarez went out and spoke to the reporters again, firm. No minor identification, no names, no images of the child. If you cross that line, you're interfering with a child protection case. A reporter tried, "Is it true 400 bikers are—" Mason cut in, neutral. "Count whatever you want," he said, "but don't point that lens at a kid." The camera drifted away. Break. Inside, Eli sat with a sandwich he couldn't swallow. The adrenaline had burned his hunger out. Mason sat across from him, keeping distance, keeping choice in the air. "You did something hard," Mason said. Eli's voice came out raw. "I just said yes." Mason shook his head. "You told the truth even when it cost you comfort." Eli stared at the table. "Truth keeps getting people hurt." Mason didn't argue. He pointed at the helmet, now on a chair beside him, the gouged visor facing down like it didn't want to look at anyone. "You know why I was out at that bus stop before dawn?" Mason asked. Eli glanced up, wary. Mason touched the helmet lightly. "Because this thing isn't just plastic. It's the last place someone I loved touched. I lost them. And I kept this because it was all I had left that felt real." Eli's throat tightened without permission. "You returned it," Mason continued, voice steady. "You didn't have to. You could have sold it, traded it, used it, and you didn't. Eli whispered, I was scared you'd think I stole it. Mason nodded. I did think it for 1 second, and that's on me. He paused. But then you spoke, and I heard a kid who still knew what right sounded like. Eli looked away fast, blinking hard. Break. At 7:26 a.m., Marla and Patel finished verifying the placement address on speakerphone, then again via state portal, then again with the judge's clerk. They were making it impossible for anyone to say, oops. The clipboard worker returned, looking more careful now. Verified, she said. Emergency foster bed is real. Caregiver cleared. Transport team is state, not county. Eli's chest tightened anyway. A new van was still a van. Marla crouched in front of him, lowering herself so she wasn't towering. Eli, she said, here's the deal. We can do this with the least possible fear, but you have to work with us. Eli swallowed. How? We walk you out, Marla said. Not like you're being hauled, like you're leaving a building you were safe in. Alvarez added. 2 deputies, body cams on, Patel with us, and Mason's people stay across the street. Engines off, no movement. Eli stared at the window. The bikes were there like a quiet wall. If he walked out, Holt couldn't just snatch him, not with that many witnesses. But fear doesn't listen to logic. What if he's outside? Eli whispered. Barnes, pale but upright, said, Holt's in custody. No bail this morning. Assault charge. Eli's lungs loosened a fraction. Marla stood. Okay, we move on my count. Break. At 7:41 a.m., the lobby doors opened. Eli stepped out between Patel and Alvarez, blanket still around his shoulders because nobody made him give it back. Mason stayed inside the threshold, respecting the boundary. He didn't escort. He didn't lead. He just watched like a lighthouse watches ships. Across the street, as if every rider had practiced it, helmets came off, not dramatically, quietly. Heads bowed just a little. A line of people acknowledging a kid without swallowing him. No one cheered. And that silence hit Eli harder than noise ever could, because it wasn't performance, it was respect. Eli took 3 steps, then froze, heart spiking. The crowd of cameras, the vans, the strangers, his body screamed that this was the moment the world turns and punishes you for hoping. Patel squeezed his shoulder gently. Keep walking. Eli forced 1 foot, then the next, eyes on the sidewalk. A reporter called out, What did the kid do to deserve this? Mason's voice carried across the street, calm and deadly serious. He returned what wasn't his. Eli swallowed hard and kept walking. The state transport vehicle wasn't a van with barred windows. It was an SUV, clean, calm. 2 workers in plain clothes stood by the door, hands visible, faces soft like they'd been trained not just in rules but in human beings. One of them spoke quietly. Eli, I'm Jenna. This is Mark. You can sit in the back seat. No cuffs, no restraints. You can keep the blanket. Eli hesitated, then nodded. He opened the door, and that's when he saw it. On the inside panel of the back seat, taped neatly with clear tape, was a printed sheet of paper, fresh, official-looking, and at the top in bold letters were words that made his blood turn cold. Voluntary Return Agreement, Eli Carter. With a signature line already filled in. With his name, in handwriting that looked like his. Eli stared at the paper taped to the door panel like it was a snake waiting to strike. Voluntary Return Agreement, Eli Carter. His name was already on the signature line, his handwriting, or something close enough to make a judge squint and shrug. His throat went tight. No, he whispered. Jenna blinked. Eli, what's wrong? Patel leaned in, eyes narrowing. Where did that come from? Eli's fingers hovered over the paper but didn't touch it. Touching it felt like accepting it. That's not real, he said. I didn't sign that. Alvarez's face hardened instantly. He stepped closer to the open SUV door, careful not to crowd Eli. Everyone stop moving, he ordered, voice low but absolute. Across the street, the line of riders didn't move, but heads lifted, 100 pairs of eyes fixed on the SUV like the air had changed. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. Marla pushed through the lobby doors and crossed the sidewalk fast, not running, but moving like she'd already decided the outcome. "Do not close that door," she snapped at the transport team. "Do not move this vehicle." Mark, the other worker, raised both hands. "We didn't put that there." Marla didn't waste breath arguing. She leaned into the SUV, read the header, read the signature, then took out her phone and began filming the paper in place. Date, time, vehicle ID and frame. "Jenna," Marla said, voice clipped. "Who issued this transport assignment?" Jenna swallowed. "State intake. We got a packet at 6:55. Marla nodded once. "And where's the packet?" Mark turned and grabbed a folder from the front seat. "Here." Marla took it without asking, flipped through, and stopped at the final page. Her expression sharpened. "This isn't state letterhead," she said. "This is a copy of a copy, and this signature—" She angled the page toward Eli. "Look at it." Eli leaned in just enough to see the slant of the letters. It looked like his name, but not like the way his hand felt when he wrote it. "It's wrong," he said, voice breaking. "I write the C like a hook. That's a loop." Marla's jaw clenched. "Forgery," she said. Then, to Alvarez, "This is the paper play I warned you about." Alvarez's radio came up. "Dispatch," he said. "I need a unit to secure this vehicle and identify chain of custody on all documents inside it. Possible evidence tampering in an active child protection case." Mason stepped out of the lobby but stayed behind the threshold line like he'd promised. He didn't cross. He didn't approach the SUV. His voice carried, calm. "Eli," he said, "don't touch it." Eli's chest tightened. "I didn't." "I know," Mason said. A reporter pushed closer, mic out. Alvarez put his body between the mic and Eli like a shield. "Back up," he said. "Now," the reporter protested. Alvarez didn't budge. "This is evidence in a felony investigation. Back up." The reporter backed up. Marla looked at Patel. "Patel, pull the state portal log. I want to see who generated an agreement with Eli's name." Patel already had her phone out. "Doing it." Marla turned back to the transport team. "You two are not suspects," she said, crisp. "But you are witnesses. Tell me exactly who handed you this packet and where." Jenna's voice shook. "A courier, outside the county building. He said he was with intake." Alvarez's eyes went cold. "Outside?" Jenna nodded. "He wore a county badge." Marla's gaze flicked toward the street, toward the crowd, the cameras, the curb. "Description." Mark spoke quickly. "Mid-30s, short beard, ball cap, walked like he belonged here." Eli felt sick. "That's Duke," he whispered. Patel's head snapped up. "Duke's in custody at Millbrook." Eli shook his head, panic rising. "Not Duke. Someone like him. Holt has more." Marla's voice dropped. "Then someone penetrated the chain of custody at the exact moment we tried to move him." Alvarez looked around like he could feel how exposed they were, even with 100 bikes standing silent across the street. "Inside," he ordered. "We bring Eli back inside. Now, calm. No rush." Eli's knees wanted to fold. Patel's hand stayed gentle on his shoulder, steering him away from the SUV door without pulling. As Eli turned, he caught sight of the paper again, his name forged into a trap, and something inside him snapped clean. "If that paper goes through," he said, voice raw, "I'm dead, not like—" He swallowed. "Not like murder, like— I disappear." Marla met his eyes. "It won't go through," she said. "Not now." They walked him back toward the doors. And that's when a shout cut from the parking lot. One of Holt's men, the one who'd been sitting in the waiting room earlier, standing near a car with his phone raised. "He's running!" the man yelled, pointing at Eli like he was calling a hunt. Instantly, the crowd's energy shifted. Reporters turned, cameras swung, people moved. Eli froze. Alvarez barked, "Do not move toward the child." But the damage was done. A ripple of bodies and attention surged, messy and loud, exactly the kind of chaos Holt needed. Mason stayed across the threshold line, but he lifted his voice like a command that didn't sound like one. "Nobody moves. Stay where you are." Some listened, some didn't. And in the confusion, a different man, one Eli had never seen before, slipped out from behind a news van, hoodie up, head down, moving with purpose straight toward Eli's blind side. His hand came up, not open, holding a syringe. The man with the hoodie moved like he'd practiced, head down, shoulders rounded, blending into the messy tide of cameras and confusion. His arm lifted smoothly, and Eli saw the syringe too late. Time slowed the way it does when your body decides it's about to die. Eli didn't scream. He couldn't. His throat locked. Patel's grip tightened, she felt him freeze, and she turned just enough to see the glint. "Syringe!" she shouted. "Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from." The hooded man lunged. Alvarez reacted first, not thinking, just moving. He stepped into the line and grabbed the attacker's wrist mid-thrust. The syringe tip scraped Alvarez's sleeve, searching for skin. "No!" Alvarez barked and slammed the man's arm outward, away from Eli. The attacker twisted like a cornered animal, snapping his elbow back toward Alvarez's ribs. Barnes, still hurt, still pale, threw himself forward and caught the attacker's shoulder, driving him into the revolving space by the doors. Glass rattled. Someone screamed. A camera clattered to the sidewalk. Eli stumbled backward, feet slipping on wet concrete. Mason's voice cut across the street, sharp as a blade without ever becoming a threat. "Do not rush." The riders held. They didn't surge. They didn't flood the sidewalk. They did what Mason asked, because flooding would turn this into exactly what Holt wanted. But one biker, older, slow-moving, hands visible, stepped forward just to form a human boundary with his body, keeping random bystanders from getting too close. Alvarez had the attacker's wrist pinned against the doorframe. "Drop it," he hissed. The hooded man grinned, wild, empty. "He's not supposed to leave," he spat. Barnes slammed his forearm into the attacker's chest. Not a punch, a shove that used the wall. The attacker's fingers loosened. The syringe hit the ground and skittered under the SUV. Patel grabbed Eli by the blanket and pulled him toward the lobby doors. Inside. Inside. Now. Eli's legs moved without permission. His heart was trying to climb out of his throat. Inside, security slammed the inner doors shut. Outside, Alvarez kept his knee in the attacker's back and snapped cuffs on him with practiced fury. "Dispatch," he shouted into his radio. "We have an assault attempt on a protected minor. Suspect in custody. Need medics and evidence tech. Now." The attacker laughed, breathless. "Too late. Paper's already moving." Marla pushed through the lobby crowd, eyes bright with controlled rage. "Who sent you?" she demanded. The attacker turned his head just enough to spit at the floor. "Ask Holt." Marla didn't blink. "Holt's in cuffs. You're going to give me a name." The attacker's smile widened. "Doesn't matter. He'll be gone anyway." Eli heard it from inside and went cold again. Gone. That was the word Holt always used when he wanted Eli afraid enough to obey. Patel guided Eli into the conference room and shut the door. She leaned against it like her body could be a lock. Eli slid down into a chair, shaking so hard the blanket slid off his shoulders. Mason entered behind Marla, stopping at the doorway, not crossing into Eli's space. He looked like a man who'd kept himself under control by force. Eli's voice came out thin. "That was for me." Mason nodded once. "Yes." Eli swallowed. "So I was right. Truth doesn't stop people." Marla stepped closer, voice low and fierce. "Truth doesn't stop them," she said, "but proof cages them." She turned to Alvarez, who had just come back inside, jaw set. "We need to lock down every document in this building. No couriers, no packets. Nothing moves unless it's hand-carried by sworn personnel." Alvarez nodded. "Already done. I've got deputies sealing intake." Patel's phone buzzed. State portal notification. She glanced, then her face drained. "What?" Marla snapped. Patel swallowed. "Someone attempted to submit that voluntary return agreement into the system 10 minutes ago. It pinged as a pending upload." Eli's stomach dropped. "So it's real." Marla shook her head. "It's attempted, not accepted." She snapped her fingers. "Patel, forward the metadata. Alvarez, I want the security footage of the courier drop. Now. Barnes, get the syringe bagged." Chain of custody. Barnes nodded, already moving, pain forgotten under adrenaline. Mason's phone buzzed again. A message from the rider outside. "People are getting restless. News is spinning it like a gang standoff." Mason's jaw tightened. He typed back, "Stay still. Engines off. Helmets on. Do not engage." He looked at Alvarez. "You need a statement," Alvarez grimaced. "If I say anything, it becomes political." Marla's eyes narrowed. "Then I'll say it." She stepped into the lobby where cameras could see her, but not Eli. She raised one hand, not to perform, but to control the room. No minor will be named, she said clearly. There was an attempted assault on a protected child. The suspect is in custody. Any suggestion that witnesses outside caused this is false. The county is preserving evidence. If you care about children, you will step back. A reporter tried to shout a question. Marla didn't answer. She walked back in, eyes locked. Now, she said, we do the last thing Holt can't survive. Eli stared at her. What? Marla opened her laptop and rotated it so Eli could see a list of names. IDs pulled from the lockbox inventory at Millbrook, now entered into the state portal. There are other kids, she said, and we are going to connect them before the paperwork gets lost. Eli's breath hitched. Tyler. Tyler's safe, Alvarez said, voice tight. Hospital, under guard. No contact orders being drafted. Marla nodded. And because of what happened outside, the judge is going to take this personally. Eli's hands shook. What about me? Where do I go? Mason spoke softly. Somewhere Holt can't reach. Marla's eyes flicked to Mason, then back to Eli. We have a verified emergency bed, she said, but we're not using their transport. We're using ours. 2 deputies, body cams, no route leaked, no paperwork visible in the vehicle, and we do it after we cut the noise outside. Eli swallowed. And if he tries again? Marla's voice dropped to finality. Then he tries in front of a city that's already watching him. Outside, the first real sunlight broke over the buildings. The line of bikes turned from silhouettes into faces. And then Alvarez's phone buzzed. He listened, his expression changing from anger to something colder. When he hung up, he looked at Eli. They just ran Holt's fingerprints, Alvarez said, and his record isn't clean. Eli's stomach tightened. What is it? Alvarez exhaled once. He's not just a bad foster guardian. Alvarez's eyes locked on Eli like he was about to drop the heaviest truth of the entire night. He's wanted in another county, he said, for a case that started with a missing kid. The words, missing kid, hit Eli like cold water. For a second, he didn't hear the lobby noise, didn't hear the reporters, didn't hear the quiet street full of bikes. He only heard Holt's voice in his head, soft, smiling, certain, you'll be gone anyway. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. Marla didn't let the air sit too long. She moved fast because the last thing Holt had left was time. Which county? She demanded. Alvarez glanced down at his phone. Ridgefield, 2 years ago, missing juvenile. Holt was interviewed, never charged. Now there's a warrant for failure to appear after a new tip. Patel's face went gray. So he was already on their radar. Mason's jaw flexed. And he still got foster placements. Marla's eyes sharpened into something feral and focused. Not after today, she turned to Barnes. Get me Holt's intake footage. I want every word he said on record. I want his calls logged. I want a timestamp that proves he was trying to move Eli while the yard was being searched. Barnes nodded, already moving. Mason's phone buzzed again. A rider outside. Someone's posting Eli's face on local pages. People are sharing. Mason went still. No. Marla snatched the phone, read the message, then looked at Alvarez. We need a protective order sealing his identity immediately, and we need the county to request takedowns. Alvarez didn't argue. He just moved. Dispatch, he said. I need cyber to contact local pages. Immediate takedown request, minor involved. Eli's hands were shaking so hard he couldn't hold the soup cup anymore. It rattled on the table. Patel sat beside him, voice steady. Look at me, Eli. You're here. You're safe. This building has cameras, deputies, lawyers, and a judge's order. Eli swallowed. He found me at a bus stop. He can find me anywhere. Mason's voice was low. Not if we stop moving you like paperwork. Break. Marla opened her laptop and started building a plan in bullet points, like speed itself could be a shield. Transport, she said. We are doing a decoy. Alvarez lifted an eyebrow. A decoy? Marla nodded. We move an empty state SUV out the front first. Cameras follow. Noise goes with it. Then Eli exits through the service corridor to the secured garage. 2 deputies only. Patel with him, no one else, not even me. Eli stared. Why not you? Marla's gaze was blunt. Because I'm recognizable now. You need to be invisible. Mason watched her. And my people? They stay exactly where they are, Marla said. They're your curtain. They keep the street from turning into chaos. Mason nodded once, no ego. Done. Alvarez checked his radio. Garage route is clear. We have 2 units staged. Patel squeezed Eli's shoulder. Eli, you just have to walk. That's it. 1 hallway, 1 door, 1 car. Eli tried to breathe. His lungs felt too small. What about Tyler? He asked suddenly, because if he thought about himself too long, panic would eat him alive. Alvarez's expression tightened. Tyler's at Ridgefield Children's Hospital under guard. No one gets near him without ID and a court order. And the other names? Eli pressed. Patel swallowed. We're pulling every case tied to Holt, every child, every placement. It's going to be big. Eli nodded slowly. Big meant someone might finally care. Break. At 8:23 a.m., the decoy SUV rolled out front exactly as planned. Reporters swarmed it like flies. Cameras pointed. A couple of bystanders shouted questions. Deputies held the line. Across the street, the riders didn't move. They didn't cheer. They didn't look at the cameras. They just stood there, still and patient, like they'd decided the world could do whatever it wanted, and they'd do only what the kid needed. Inside, Eli walked down a service hallway that smelled like mop water and old concrete. His shoes squeaked with every step, loud in the quiet. Patel walked beside him. 2 deputies walked behind, close enough to protect, far enough to not feel like prison. Eli's chest hurt with each breath. He kept expecting a hand on his shoulder, a voice behind him, Holt's smile. Nothing happened. They reached the secured garage door. Patel swiped a badge. The door clicked. They stepped into the garage and walked to an unmarked county sedan with the engine already running. No paperwork on the seats, no taped forms. Just a clean interior and a deputy in the driver's seat who turned around and spoke softly. Eli, the deputy said, you're in control. You tell me if you need to stop. You tell me if you need water, okay? Eli nodded, throat tight. He got into the back seat, blanket still around his shoulders. Patel closed the door, and for the first time all night, Eli was behind glass again. But this time, it didn't feel like a cage. It felt like distance. The car rolled out through the underground exit and turned onto a side street no camera was watching. Break. The emergency foster house was small and quiet, in a neighborhood that didn't look like it had ever heard of Millbrook storage. There were no fences topped with wire, no piles of junk, no storage containers, just a porch light left on in daylight. A woman opened the door before they even knocked. Mid-50s, soft voice, steady eyes. She didn't rush him. She didn't say, poor thing. She didn't touch him without asking. Hi, Eli, she said. I'm Nora. I made breakfast. You can eat now or later. Your choice. Choice. The word felt unfamiliar, like a language he'd forgotten. Eli nodded once, barely. Inside smelled like toast and clean soap. There was a couch with a folded blanket already on it, different from his blanket, his to keep. There was a small bedroom down the hall with a bed made up neatly, a lamp on the nightstand, a clean towel folded on a chair like it was expecting him. The deputy waited by the door while Patel signed paperwork at the kitchen counter. Eli stood in the doorway of the bedroom, afraid to step in like it might vanish if he claimed it. Nora didn't push. She just spoke gently from the hall. If you want the door open, it stays open. If you want it closed, I'll close it. You tell me. Eli's throat burned. Open, he managed. Nora nodded. Open. Break. Back at the county building, the news cycle shifted fast. The attempted syringe assault became the headline. The Millbrook shed footage leaked to a larger outlet. The forged agreement became proof of tampering. The lockbox inventory triggered an immediate statewide review. And Randy Holt, now tied to an out-of-county missing juvenile warrant, was no longer a local problem. He was a state problem. Marla stood in the lobby and watched the riders across the street as deputies quietly began dispersing the press. She raised a hand, not as a salute, more like a thank you without words. Mason answered with a single nod, then turned away. No victory lap, no speeches, just the job done. Break. Late afternoon, Mason's phone buzzed. A single text from Marla. Safe, placed, sealed identity, no contact order served. Mason stared at it for a long time, then opened the helmet and looked at the red ribbon stitched inside. For a moment, He wasn't Iron Haven. He wasn't a man people feared. He was just someone who'd lost a child and spent years pretending it didn't matter. He typed a message with the kind of caremen like him usually saved for prayer. "You got to bed tonight. That's all that matters." Then he hesitated, added one more line, and hit send. "If you want, I can come by tomorrow. Not to talk. Just to drop off groceries. You decide." Break. That night, in Nora's house, Eli sat on the edge of the bed in clean clothes that didn't fit perfectly but were his for now. He ate 2 pieces of toast and half a bowl of cereal, then stopped like his body didn't trust it would be allowed. He walked to the bathroom, turned the tap, watched clear water come out, and felt something inside him loosen. He went back to the bedroom and stared at the bed again. Then his phone, Nora had given him an old one with emergency numbers and one saved contact, buzzed once. Mason's text. Eli read it twice. His hands shook, but slower now. He typed back with his thumbs, clumsy. "Okay. Maybe." He set the phone down like it might bite him. Then he lay down, fully clothed, blanket pulled to his chin, door still open like he asked. Outside, a car passed. A dog barked once. Normal sounds. Eli stared at the ceiling for a long time, waiting for the crash, waiting for the knock, waiting for Holt's voice. It didn't come. His eyes finally closed, and somewhere far away, in the back of the county lot, the last remaining Harley rolled out quietly, engine low, like a promise leaving a street without needing applause. The house stayed still. Eli slept.